While working on a new retrospective about one of my favorite games, Kenshi, I was dissatisfied with the hazy nature of when it started development. Wikipedia, for example, claims that the game started development sometime around 2006, 7, or 8, which is oddly vague. I wanted to nail down a date, so I went through its sources but still couldn't find a conclusive answer. So I continued to dig, and to my surprise, I found myself falling down a much more interesting rabbit hole than I intended. To put first things first, based on the research I did for this video, the origins of Kenshi easily predate 2006. In fact, the first prototypes of it can be traced back to, at the latest, 2002. That's even before Chris Hunt, the game's creator, started using the Ogre engine, which was officially released in 2005. In case you don't know, the company that produced Kenshi is Lo-Fi Games. If you go to lofigames.com, they rightly talk about the success and popularity of Kenshi and the development of Kenshi 2. On their website, they state that the company was founded in 2006, which is likely why some articles attribute the beginning of Kenshi to that year. However, lofigames.com has been registered since at least 2004 and had been working on a game named Gunners since at least 2002. Searching for the source of Kenshi, I looked deeper into this other game. To my surprise, Lo-Fi described Gunners in a way that leaves little doubt that it was the original Kenshi. But after additional research, I was also able to find confirmation from Chris Hunt himself that Gunners was the original prototype of Kenshi. In order to place Gunners, and therefore Kenshi, in a specific timeline, I attempted to find the earliest information I could about the game. In a post on Concepts Design Forum published in November of 2002, and last updated on January 21st, 2003, a user by the name of Space Jim wrote that Lo-Fi Games was looking for someone to help with their new game, which they called Gunners. Space Jim wrote, quote, "The game is set in a post-apocalyptic desert world, sand, rocks, and wasteland. Mad Max style, with scattered towns and settlements. Travelers, traders, and gangs drift from town to town, searching for fortune and violence. Characters are combat-hardened, veterans, armed to the teeth, and dressed in ragged, war-torn clothes." End quote. This, of course, sounds very similar to many of the mechanics in Kenshi. I wanted to make certain that this early version of Lo-Fi Games is the same as the current iteration of the company, and not a now defunct company with a similar name and game. So, in an attempt to find out who Space Jim was, I was able to find a list of authors who helped create the Ogre engine on GitHub. On the GitHub page for Ogre from November 26, 2016, Caramel Pell wrote, quote, "Ogre was originally created by Steve Streeting, Sinbad, but many other developers have contributed to the project over the years." End quote. Scrolling down the list, a man by the name of Chris Hunt pops up with the name Space Jim in parentheses. This established a direct connection between Gunners and Mr. Hunt. Back to researching how close Gunners was to Kenshi, lofigames.com gave further details on it in 2004. Again, this is years before any public reporting about when Kenshi began development. In a post from February 17, 2004, Lo-Fi Games wrote, quote, "Gunners is a free-roaming, real-time RPG, currently under development by myself and any volunteers and freelancers that happen to drift by. You can be a monster hunter, a kung fu fighter, a sniper assassin, a rich trader, a raider, a bodyguard, a mass murderer, or a defender of the weak and oppressed." End quote. On another page called Features List, Lo-Fi Games wrote, quote, "Real-time combat and physics with advanced team AI. Your team will work together, cover each other and drag their wounded out of a battle. Severed limbs, epic battles, equip your squad in panic as an entire army swarms over the hill, all after your blood. Travel the desert off-world, discover new lands, and learn to survive the dangerous wildlife. Fight to the end. Your characters can still fight from the ground if they are incapacitated or badly wounded." End quote. There are other features listed that are not in Kenshi, such as bullet physics and vehicles. However, its sandbox nature, skills, fighting concepts, and settings are all either the same or extremely similar to what would become Kenshi. I then discovered that Gunners also had its own website, which seems to predate lo-figames.com. It was called dustgunners.com and had the same verbiage on its website and a very similar design as lo-figames.com. In the earliest post I could find on September 17th, 2002, Dust Gunners wrote, quote, "Gunners is a free-roaming action strategy game currently under development by Lo-Fi Games," end quote. Now, obviously, there was a strong connection between the two games, but determining whether Gunners was indeed Kenshi was unclear as I continued to research. I figured that pictures of the game might conclusively prove them to be the same or different. But try as I might, I couldn't come across any pictures of Gunners. However, after sifting through dozens of archived web pages on the Internet Wayback Machine, I was lucky enough to come across screenshots for Gunners from way back in 2006. They are tiny and don't show too much, but the style shows a marked similarity to Kenshi. As great as it was to see pictures of Gunners, there was nothing more concrete that I could find to prove whether it was the same game that Kenshi would become. I thought my search had ended until it occurred to me that, I could use reverse image search to see if anything matching the screenshots from Gunners would show up. Lo and behold, the screenshot for the entrance to a hangar produced a bingo from none other than the man himself, Chris Hunt. In a post on Twitter dated December 8th, 2020, Mr. Hunt wrote, quote, "I actually found the very oldest Kenshi screenshots ever, dated somewhere between 2002 and 2005. Not even an Ogre engine, so technically a prototype rather than the actual same game." End quote. And would you look at that, one of the pictures he posted is the very same from dustgunners.com. After this, I went through Dust Gunners again and was able to find the second screenshot posted by Mr. Hunt. In an archive post from 2003, using the same URL, even more pictures were saved by the Wayback Machine this time around. And if you look closely, there is the other one on the right, along with other super early screenshots. Mr. Hunt had written that the screenshots were somewhere between 2002 and 2005, but based on the cached page on Internet Archive, they were from no later than 2003. Thus, the mystery for me had been solved. Kenshi's origins and development predate what was publicly written on Wikipedia and other major video game websites. It originated as Gunners, and over the course of several years, switched names and engines, but retained most of its founding ideas and concepts. This was an extremely fun and fulfilling research project. If you enjoyed it and this video, please consider subscribing. Beep would want you to. And please, be on the lookout for my Kenshi retrospective, which took a much needed detour while I researched this.